Okay, I'm going to write the geometry problems on here and show you how to do them. So the first one looks like this. C, B, D, A. Okay, given CD bisects AB, prove that ABC is similar to BDC. I think that if CD bisects AB, a bisector has to come at that thing it bisects perpendicular, so it's a 90-degree angle. And since this side is the same, we want to prove it's congruent. These angles are the same, and these sides are the same. We could prove it by a side angle side. So let's try it. So, alright, so what we would say is, if we would say that AD is congruent to DB by definition of bisector, right? And then we would say CD is congruent to itself. And I'm not sure if that's reflexive or symmetric. You'd have to figure it out. But then we would say angle CDA is a right angle. And I think that's probably by definition of segment bisector, right? And then also angle CDB is a right angle, definition of segment bisector. And then you could say that I'm not sure if I wrote that right. Let's look. AD, this is a D here. BDC. Okay, so then you could say angle ADC is congruent to angle BDC by side angle side. Doesn't that sound right? Let's look at the next one. Alright, the next one has this picture. That looks like this. This is an S, an M, a P, an L, an O, a 1, and a 2. Then it says, given. Oh, and those really should go as our reasoning too. We got to put those in our reasonings, in our proof. LM perpendicular OP. So we'll just say, right, given LM is congruent, the segment LM is congruent to OP, given, and M is the midpoint, of SP, and that's a given. Prove that SLM is congruent to MOP. So let's see. If LM, right here, is perpendicular to OP, right? Then this becomes a it cuts across parallel, transversal. So then we really know that, I'm not sure why they labeled those angles 1 and 2, quite frankly. We can say that, I'm going to label an angle here for a second. angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 by corresponding angles are congruent, right? Based on those parallel lines. Then they said the segment LM is congruent to the segment OP. All right, so we have an angle. We have an angle that's the same, and we have a side that's the same. Then they say that M is the midpoint of SP. Okay, so that means SM is congruent to MP based on definition of segment bisector, right? And then that means we have a side angle side. So again, this, what we're trying to prove here is SLM is congruent to MOP by side angle side. I know this is a little bit messy, but I'm hoping you can make sense of it. Okay, let's see what this last one says. Oh, that's what we just did. Let me go back to the third one. Here we go. All right, one more slide. The third one has this picture that looks like this. All right, and the picture has, if I get this right, this is a T, this is a P. Oh, I think he has this a Q, R, and S. Okay, so we know, here we go, PQ is perpendicular to QS, given, right? RS is perpendicular to QS, given. T is midpoint of PR, given. All right, if PQ is perpendicular to QS and RS is perpendicular to QS, then PQ is parallel to RS. Something like two lines perpendicular to same line are parallel to each other. Okay? So now we know these are parallel lines. Alright. Therefore, we know, I'm going to call this a transversal along those parallel lines, right? That means angle 1 and angle 2, here's the parallel lines, okay? Angle 1 and angle 2, angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 because of alternate interior angles are congruent. Well, guess what? We can say the same thing about 3 and 4. Oh, we don't even need to say about 3 and 4. What we would say then is if I label 5 and 6, why do we know angle 5 is congruent to angle 6? Is because they're vertical angles, right? And then we're going to use this midpoint. If T is the midpoint of PR, then PT is congruent to TR by definition of midpoint. So notice we didn't need 4 and 3. What we have is 1 is congruent to 2. PT is congruent to PR. And then 5 is congruent to 6. So these two, it's going to be an angle side angle. So QPT is congruent to RST by angle side angle. Okay, so there's the geometry portion. I am I'm going to try to read these other bio sheets and see what we have. It's a little hard to see though, that's the only thing. Okay. Starting with, whoops. Let's see if I can write it on here. Which of the, I'm looking at 14. Which of the following is not required for photosynthesis? Water, carbon dioxide, chlorophyll, oxygen, light energy. Well, guess what? Photosynthesis uses carbon dioxide and makes oxygen. So 14 should be number 4, oxygen. Right? Let's look at 15. Which of the following is a true statement about chlorophyll? It absorbs mostly green light. It is responsible for the red and orange colors of leaves in the fall. It absorbs red and blue, like the best. It is useful for photosynthesis, but not absolutely necessary. Okay, it does not absorb green light. It reflects green light. So 1 is not true. It is responsible for the red and orange colors of leaves in the fall. I don't know about this. I don't know about that because, no, it's not. 3, it absorbs red and blue light the best. I think 3 might be true because number 4 says it's useful for photosynthesis but not absolutely necessary. It is absolutely necessary. So I'm thinking 15 is 3. All right, then it's now 16 is it true or false, right? It says photosynthesis is the process of trapping the sun's energy in order to make molecules of glucose. That's true, right? 17. Carbon dioxide is produced during photosynthesis. False. Oxygen is produced. Okay, 18. ATP is very energy poor and ADP is very energy rich. That one I cannot answer. I'd have to look it up. So I don't know about that one. Let's talk about 19. Heterotrophs depend on autotrophs, but autotrophs are not dependent on heterotrophs. I believe that's true. I don't believe autotrophs need heterotrophs, but definitely heterotrophs need autotrophs. All right. 20. All parts of the plant are capable of carrying out photosynthesis. That's false. Only the leaves, because the leaves have the chlorophyll, right? So that's false. 21. The primary photosynthetic part of a leaf are the spongy cells. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look that up. Okay, let's look at the fill in the blank. Organism that can make their own food, right? So 22 is an autotroph, right? Autotrophs can make their own food. Whoops, sorry about that. All right, organism that cannot make their own food is a heterotroph. Heterotroph. All right. Life on Earth is dependent on photosynthesis for what 2 things? Well, photosynthesis makes oxygen, right? So it's responsible, or the Earth is dependent on photosynthesis for oxygen, and also, let's think, probably the glucose, right? The glucose is where the sun's energy is trapped. The heterotrophs have to eat the autotrophs in order to get that energy. Why do autotrophs depend on heterotrophs? Oh, why do autotrophs depend on autotrophs? Maybe I'm wrong then. Maybe autotrophs need heterotrophs for the carbon dioxide that they breathe out. Because autotrophs use that carbon dioxide to make, they use it in photosynthesis. So, if I go back, that means 19 might be, this one might be false. I'm not sure. Okay, water is required for photosynthesis. How does the plan acquire the